Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolowski, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
All right. Well, welcome to today's show. I have really an interesting one for you. I have 2 people on the show today, remote, and both of them have stage names. One is Shake, and the other is Barney. So here's the deal. Let's go for this, and I'll tell you about it. First of all, both of these men are really inspiring leaders who are making a difference in this world and sharing joy and love and inspiring messages that come from the heart. And if it doesn't come from the heart, it's not very inspiring, is it? So you'll feel it, you'll see it, you'll hear it in the show today. So I want to start by introducing a man named Shake. His real name is Sam, but he'll tell you about that. Shake Anderson is Mr. Soul. Mr. Soul. He is a songwriter. He is a singer. He is a multi-instrumentalist. Shake was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and he started touring at the age of 9 years old. He developed and is continuing to develop a sound that is just so raw and gritty and full of emotion because it comes from his experiences and what he sees in the world and what he feels in his heart. And as Carey, who's also going to be in the show today, has told me about Shake, because I haven't met him until now, you cannot listen to his music without feeling it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the sign of a good musician. So we're going to hear from Shake. And then we're also going to hear from Carey Stinson, who was Barney the Purple Dinosaur. But Carey Stinson now is really taking off with his career in terms of being a fine art photographer, really a fine art photographer. He is calling his company, which has been around for quite a while, he calls it Carey Stinson Creative, and that's exactly what he is. The other way, though, you'll know Carey Stinson is he has his own podcast, like I do, and it's called Purple Roads. And he interviews the most interesting people, all from the children's entertainment world, and they just talk about the fun times they've had and the inspirational stories. Now, the way this happened was Carey and I know each other, and Carey was telling me one day about Shake. And he said, Valerie, this is a person, your show is about authenticity, your show is about how leaders who come from that place of the heart, how they are different, and how that difference inspires people, and how those people then inspire the world. So, okay, welcome, Shake Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
You know what? You just look great. You're right there in authenticness with your pictures of your family and a keyboard behind you. And you know that I'm going to ask you in a moment to sing and to play however you want to do that. So stay tuned. But I want to start by asking you a couple of questions. Okay. You're known, Shake, for soul music. Would you just tell us what's soul music really?
I'll sum it this way. It's what's at the deeper recesses of the heart. Those things that reveal themselves, whether you want them to or not, often. That's for me, at least, because I grew up in a time when music wasn't segregated. It was, you could listen to the radio stations I grew up listening to, and you'd hear Ray Charles, then the Beatles, then Hank Williams, then James Brown, then Earth, Wind and Fire, then Patsy Cline. So you heard everything. So you never, I didn't grow up thinking that there was this separate thing. And my favorite artists did whatever songs they wanted to. Didn't matter who wrote it or what genre it was. You'd hear Wilson Pickett singing a Beatles song. And so that was soul to me, was what came from the heart.
Well, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? You know, I don't know if, Carey, you know this, but I will tell both of you. My husband had a rock and roll band, and that's how we met. Are you laughing yet? Okay.
I am laughing and smiling. I had no idea.
Well, there's a lot you don't know about me, and it all seems to come out on my shows at some point in time. He had a rock and roll band called the Fantastics, and he was a sax player, Shake. And he was so excited to have you on the show. And he was talking to me about this, and he has a question. He said, you know, talk to Shake about the fact that when I was playing, back to your point of the soul, he said I could hear it in my mind. I could feel it in my body. The hardest part was to get it from those feelings and those senses onto the saxophone so that it came out. And so his question, Shake, to you is, how did you learn to do that from the heart, from the soul, the music that's up here, out to what you're doing now?
Well, I tend to write what I feel. So whatever I feel, it usually ends up on the paper. And I kind of know what, you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm writing about, unfortunately, if I'm writing about love loss, it's because I experienced it.
Yeah.
If I'm writing about a song that deals with poverty or being poor or impoverished or lacking, I lived that. So when I would visit countries like Romania, when I went to North Korea, when I went to Africa, and I saw squalor, you know, even though that was like the extreme nth degree, but I can relate to that because I grew up a really, really poor kid in the ghetto. And so I've been brokenhearted, and I didn't forget that, you know, what that meant. So when I would write a song, even the songs that inspire, they were usually from a place of brokenness that had a sense of hope. So, you know, hopefully that answers that question.
Well, nothing's going to answer it better than hearing you play and sing something from the soul.
Okay.
Would you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I wrote a song. Can you hear that?
Yep.
You can't hear my piano?
Huh?
We can hear it.
So I wrote this song when I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for a year. And then after I got out of the hospital, I went through all this rehab. But while I was in the hospital, a friend of mine brought me a book and said, while you're here, I don't want you to forget how to write. I don't want you to forget. Take this situation you're in and write about it. No matter what comes out, just journal, write. And so I wrote this song. It says, take the trials that you've gone through and all the times life made you blue. Search down deep within yourself. Oh, make it medicine for someone else, someone else. Share all the joy you wish you know. Hold on to the tears that you shed. Bottle them with care as though for yourself. Oh, make it medicine for someone else, someone else. You gotta go, and it's hard, I know. Sometimes the way we see it grow. It's for you not to take it personal. 'Cause it's not about your sin. Yes, it's hard to face. You suffered for someone else. Through all the wisdom that you gained. And all the lessons learned today. Take those trophies, take them off the shelf. Oh, make it medicine for someone else, someone else. Oh, make it medicine for someone else, someone else. You. Make it medicine for someone else. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. I could hear.
Oh.
I mean, this is being recorded, I think, on your phone. And yet
Yes.
that whole soul of you came through. Your voice was perfect. You play the guitar often, I know, as well. Let me ask you about that song. And then I want to ask Carey about how he met you and has come to be such an admirer. I can see why. That song was very deep, and you said it came from being in the hospital for a year.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I went in the hospital June 2nd of 2004, and I didn't get out until May of 2005. And I went through a year of rehab after that. But while I was in the hospital, I got so depressed. I was so sick. I was sick for so long. And I got depressed, and I thought, well, I'm never going to get out of here. And people would come by, and you know how people come and visit you in a place, and you're not your best. You're not even close to it. You're not even what you remotely used to be. And they don't say that, but they look at you, and their eyes tell you everything you need to know. And I remember friends would visit me, and they were trying to be positive. They were trying to be hopeful, but their eyes always said, "He ain't getting out of here. It's over." And so, a guy that I loved with all my heart, his name is Joel, a younger guy. He was like a little brother to me. He came to me, and I'd been there about 3 months at that point. And he came in one day, and I'd just gone through this, one of the surgeries, when they opened up everything, And I was just coherent enough to hear him say, Sheikh, I love you, and you're going to get through this. And when you get through this, people need to hear about what you've gone through. And so it may have been a week or two later, I looked over on that little table and I saw that book. And as best I could, I started writing it. And the song came out of it. And it came out of it because, out of all the things that I've ever wanted in my life was I've wanted to be impactful. I've wanted to be a person that meant something to more than just myself, to my community, to my people, to the world, period, to man. I wanted to be something more than some dude that, he lived, he occupied space on earth, he ate food, he got fat. I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted, in the course of my life, I hope that everybody wants to do something meaningful with their life. But anyway, so I wrote this song, And as a matter of fact, it opens up the very first thing it says, take the trials that you've gone through and all the times that made you blue, search down deep within yourself, and then make that medicine for someone else. You know, everything we've gone through, our troubles, our pains, everything about our lives, we usually filter those in some kind of way. And it can either be good or it can be bad. I could filter those things and be a negative person, you know, or I could filter those things and be part of the cure. And that's what I'm trying to be.
Not trying, Shake, you are. Carey, this wonderful man, we both know, is famous. I mean, Shake Anderson plays all over the world. He mentioned a few countries that he was in, and still is traveling when he can to all of the places that he's being hired to share his music in. He also has a show every Sunday morning. I wrote it down, called The Soul Church. The Soul Church on Facebook Live. So knowing that this man is well known, he's been in movies and all of that. How did you meet him, and what would you say about him?
Well, first of all, Valerie, you can tell I can't stop smiling. I mean, just listening to that man's voice makes me smile.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is I didn't know anything about him. I went to a place in Richardson to meet some friends, and he happened to be playing on stage that night. And obviously I heard the voice and I was blown away, but within I'd say an hour and a half, I saw him cry on stage. I saw him walk off the stage and preach to the audience. And then at the end of the night, he was so emotional with the song, he was clapping, walked off the stage. I looked at my friend and said, "Is he coming back?" So I don't know. And he never came back. And I said, I've got to meet this man. And we just kind of hit off an instant friendship. And I love people that inspire. I love people who, as he just in his own words said, wants to do something with his life, and authenticity. He's the most authentic person I've ever met. So we've just built up a friendship that I cherish.
You know, there's nothing more important in this life than to have people who I call, in terms of personal branding work that I do, your brand ambassadors. Those people that have you top of mind when good things happen, when opportunities are there that person would be able to fulfill. Relationships. So what a special friendship you two have. And Carey, you too are extremely authentic. You went from being Barney the Purple Dinosaur, and you were gracious to be on my show some time ago as Barney the Purple Dinosaur, and you told all about that. And so I'm not going to go there now because people can go back and watch that show. But what that taught you was the meaning of, as Shake said, purpose. Why are we here on this earth? So tell us about Purple Roads, your podcast, and how that came to be, and what you are enjoying most now sharing with the world on your own podcast.
Well, with Purple Roads, I bring on a lot of people from children's entertainment and even pop culture. I had such an amazing experience playing Barney for all those years. And I learned so much. I experienced so much. And I thought, you know, there's a lot of people that have done this as well, and I want to hear their story. And, you know, in fact, it's been the same thing with Shake. As you talk about his career, I learn so much every time. Like Valerie, I don't know if you know that this man used to do commercials and jingles. And there's one, I'm going to put him on the spot here, but there's one, because we're Texas, but there's one from Dr. Pepper you may have heard before that this man sang.
What is it?
So are you asking me to sing?
Yeah, what is it? What is it?
You know I am.
Okay. So it's, you're the part of me, that's the heart of me, Dr. Pepper, you're a part of me.
That's awesome. Would you sign an autograph for me on that on a Dr. Pepper can when I meet you in person? That is incredible. Shake, I have to ask you. Go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, Valerie, so you see what I mean? When you get to know people, you learn more about them. And that's why I started my podcast. And that's why I walk up when I meet someone like Shake and I got to know more.
What are Carey, on your podcast, which is so fun? I mean, it's so fun. All the guests obviously have great stories. What have you learned the most about shifting your career? I mean, you're doing photography, fabulous photography. You did Barney. That was a fabulous time in your life. Now you're doing this successful podcast called Purple Roads. What have you learned so far in doing the podcast, you personally?
I have learned that you can never stop growing. I have learned by never accepting the word no. You know, I have contacted a lot of people that I wasn't sure they'd be on my show, and they have, and I've got these amazing stories out of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think I've just learned more about the positivity of love. I have seen some unbelievable things talking to these people on my show. And so, you know, I just keep challenging myself, and, you know, you never know where you're going to go.
What a great podcast we're having today. You know, I once in a while I go back and kind of read what I wrote in one of my books. And I was flipping through Do It Right, from which Doing It Right, name of the podcast, came. And I had put a quote in here. It was a chapter talking about tips for being savvy leaders. And here's the quote. See what you two think about it. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them to become what they are capable of being. And that's by Johann von Goethe. That's
Absolutely.
Isn't that great?
Wow. Amazing, yes.
That's what you're doing. Shake, I don't know if Carey told you this, but I always want my guests to leave us with your words of wisdom, your lessons learned, those things that you have a 12-year-old son, I know, and the kinds of things you would tell him about life, like what are the lessons learned that you would leave with the audience? Can you give us a couple of those, we call them teachable points of view, because you're teaching others all the time.
Well, the first one would be something that I was always told. I wish I had been told when I was young, but unfortunately, I was around quite a few people that were kind of negative influences. But when I started to try to really do this thing called music and life, I had one person in particular tell me, you'll never know what you're going to become until you become what you'll never know you're going to become. So keep dreaming and keep believing that you're going to get wherever it is you want to go. And I say that because I'm 56. Last year I had a record hit the pop charts. 56. and I'm going, and it did really well. It was beating out, you know, like Taylor Swift and Jonas Brothers and people like that on these charts. And I've always been a believer that, you know, everybody has a voice that comes around in season. And seasons are like Ferris wheels. Somebody gets on, somebody gets off, but it keeps going around, it keeps going around. And if you just stay true to what you are, your chance will come to get on, your chance will come to get off, and it'll come to get back on again. And that's the hallelujah part for me, because you know, I mean, seriously, you know what I'm saying? I had guys when this is funny, I was signed to Warner Brothers, Warner Chappell, which is Warner Brothers and Chappell Music. They were the largest publishing company in the world. And I'm working on all these great things. At that time, I'm working on Dr. Dolittle, and I'm working on Sister Act, and I'm working on The Matrix. and Blue Streak, all these movies, and then I'm doing these commercials, and I've got this deal. And I had a guy tell me, and I'm like maybe 25, 26 at this point, I had a guy tell me it was too late for me. I was too old. You'll never make it. You're too old. You got to be 17. You got to be all this stuff. You got to be the skinny kid with this so look. And I'm having success. That's the other thing. Is like, this is while I'm being successful that he's telling me this. So, you know what I'm saying? 30 years later, here I am coming back around, and I'm having a ball. You know what I'm saying? And I just never stop. I believe that eventually it'll be my turn again. And there's always room.
Well, okay, Shake, tell us what the name of the hit star record was.
The record that did it's now you would say that the title of the record was Letters to Friends, and it's out now. It actually only we released it late last year, and it started going up the charts. So the title is Letters to Friends, and I'll Be Loving You is the single. And if matter of fact, you can look it on Spotify and all the different mediums. I'll Be Loving You is the single, and it just did really, really well. We were getting ready to release a new single, and then we hit this, situation we're in now, and so we're just kind of waiting to see how things pan out before we go for another push. Because the life's blood of me is in performing live.
Yeah.
So there you go.
We're going to have that up on the bottom of the screen, and so people can know that song. And of course, I can't wait to go and find it as well. You're right.
Yes.
You're in a difficult position when you can't be out doing what you do best. Carey and I are a little bit better off in terms of being able to do what we're doing because it's online. But Carey, back to you for a minute. You know that there's a song that he should end this podcast with. Tell us about why you think that.
He's smiling because he knows what that song is. I also want to say this really quick, Valerie. I had the honor of doing a photography shoot with Shake. Yeah. And we worked together. And I've shot pictures before of a lot of musicians. I've never had one actually perform. The man kept singing and playing during the whole photo shoot. And it's one of the best shoots I ever had. So I'll have to send you some pictures to see that too, because it's really amazing. The song is called So Wasted, and I just responded to it so deeply. And then I saw him perform it, and he actually sat and cried on stage. And it was so authentic that it just really stuck this song in my heart. So hopefully Shake can play a little bit for us.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Well, yeah, otherwise we'll all be crying. I don't have a tissue box here.
I don't want to be crying on Valerie's podcast.
I know.
Okay.
And then people say, is it all he does is crying? Does he always cry? But this song's been, first of all, a lot of the things we do are for ourselves. To me, that's how something is successful. If I test something and it works on me, then I believe it usually will work the other way. So this is a song. It's on the Advice for the Kind-Hearted record. It's called So Wasted. And here we go. Like a diamond in the rough, time and not revealed. I was one you could not lend. You're only hard to feel. You could never see my value. It was hidden from your sight. I tried to show you sunshine. You kept us in the night. return. I'm the song you never sung, the book you wouldn't write, the dream that you deferred in the middle of the night. I'm wasting so much love, squandered all my pain. Sugar on the floor, flower in the rain, so wasted, so wasted. We could have been much better. We could have been the best. We should have been contenders, but we never took the test. So many I love yous, never to return. I'm the song you never sung, you wouldn't write, the dream that you deferred in the middle of the night. I wasted so much love, squandered all my pain, sugar on the floor, flower in the rain, so wasted, so wasted. So wasted.
Wow. Well, you know what? Neither of you are wasting any gift that God has given you. And when you know that you're using his gifts, you know you're in the flow and you've got the purpose and the reason for why you're being here in this world. I can't thank my guests enough for being on the show. And you'll see on the screen where you can contact Shake. You can also watch his Sunday show called The Soul Church on Facebook. You can look at Carey's wonderful photography at Carey Stinson Creative. And for sure, tune in to his podcast, Purple Roads. Thank you for being with us today. It's been incredible. And if you've received a blessing today, I'd so appreciate it if you'd share the podcasts with friends and with colleagues and business people. That's the only reason we're going to keep going, is if we know that people are subscribing and sharing. So that's the drill. Yep. If you'll do it for me, I would appreciate that. So here's my Valerieism for this time. You can only do what you do if you know who you are. That's your personal brand. And why am I mentioning that today? I don't know. It just seemed to be that during the time of reflection and a period in our world where there's been a lot of at-home time, many of my colleagues, many of my friends and peers and clients, and me included, we've all had really more time than we wanted to reflect on who we are. And I hope that you have. Many times I'm hearing people say, you know, I never had a chance to just sit down and have quiet time with myself, or have a devotion, or take time to learn something that I want to learn. It is a little bit about my time, isn't it? And that's okay. I'll tell you a quick story about when I really got that urge to just put it out there to say, you know, just be real, just be authentic. And of course, now you know the passion behind that with my podcast. But here's the deal. When I started my career, I was going on the tour as a professional speaker. And I had my eyes always on other people, Oh my goodness, I'd go to the conventions and I'd hear these fabulous speakers, and they were so polished and they had just the right tone and just the right pauses, and they always got standing ovations. And I yearned for a standing ovation. I thought that would just be the ultimate. And I found myself trying to copy. Well, if I just do a little bit more of this because they did it, or if I look a little bit more like that because she does, and so forth. One day, my wonderful assistant at the time, Susie, said to me, she almost got angry. She said, Valerie, and she pounded her fist on the table and said, why don't you stop looking at everybody else and just be who you are? That was a pivot. And it just struck such a deep place in my heart. I never again, ever looked at, I've got to be who somebody else is. And I don't want you to either. So there's a scripture, actually, that I'm going to leave you with that says, be still and know that I am God. And the reason I'm leaving with that with you is because it starts with the word be. And I've learned to take each of those words and just stop and pause on them. So the first word, be. Sometimes I just say, Valerie, just be. And then just be still. Ooh, Valerie, stop. Just be still. Be able to listen more. And then be still and know. Oh, yeah, I do know some things. What should I be knowing? Be still and know. And then be still and know that I am God. And He's going to take us through whatever it is, our challenges today. That's my Valerieism. Until next time, bye.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.